I wanted to create what in my mind, a female version of Jareth might look like. We have these archetypes of like these male swaggy elven, dudes. I hadn't really seen much in the way of like a female in that role, right?
Well, since we're running, thank you for doing this again, Raven. Full disclosure for the audience, we have done this before. Oh my God, he's coming back. There's no more leaves. Also, full disclosure, there's a guy leaf blowing right outside my door. And he's very thorough.
He's incredibly thorough.
He's so thorough. He's getting every last leaf. I'm here with Raven Quinn. And she's just released her new Kit album, Masquerade in the Underground. She's reporting live from San Diego, ? Irvine, ?
I could be anywhere. I'm in Tirnanog. I'm in the Feylands. No, actually, we're closer to San Diego. We are in Southern California, kind of wine country. So
okay, yeah, like back inland a little bit.
Yeah, closer to Temecula.
One thing, just like as an aside, I was saying before we started recording, I couldn't help but notice that Raven here has a very polished streaming setup. And you mentioned that you would stream games on Twitch, and I'm curious what games that you used to or still do stream on Twitch.
So I think I began streaming. I pretty much streamed on Twitch most of last year and maybe a little bit of 2023. And I played. I started off with Little Nightmares 1 and 2. I played both of those games all the way through. I played quite a bit of Final Fantasy, the MMO, with my friends online.
Great.
We would just hang out and play. Yeah, it was really fun. I did a full playthrough of Super Mario World on SNES.
Oh, the like original. Well, not the original, but the original from like our generation.
Yes, from our generation, because that I think that was like maybe Christmas time, and I was just like, what feels like Christmas time to a millennial as far as video games are concerned? Console, Nintendo or Sega is what feels like Christmas time, or N64 or something like that. So my favorite old timey game is Super Mario. Let's see. Yeah.
Were you a kid when did you get a Super Nintendo for Christmas one year?
Oh, for sure.
Or was it like your friends had it? Yeah. Okay.
No,
I
got a Super
guy.
Nintendo.
I was the Sega guy. I had my friend had the Super Nintendo, and between the two of us, we were able to cover our bases.
To cover your bases. The lucky thing for me was I had older siblings, and so I think our parents were kind of like down for. We didn't get them the same year. We got Super Nintendo one year, and then we got the Sega I think the year after that. So we ended up with both of them. And I think my parents knew they weren't gonna get around that just because there's too many kids in the house. We were gonna need both.
How many siblings did you have?
So I had two. Yeah, I have 2 older siblings that were in the house, and then 1 little sister as well. So there was at my 2 older siblings are quite a bit older, but there was a period of time when we were little where they were still at home and teenagers. So So at the fullest, there were 4 kids in the house at the same time, and even when when my older brother and sister were older and moved out, there was still my little sister and I in the house. So that we're closer in age. So yeah, and everybody wanted to play video games.
Sure,
we were all gamers.
Yeah, of course. But anyway, I'm getting off on a really long tangent here, but I want to just like for people who we're continuing conversation with no context for anybody who doesn't know who you are. Raven Quinn just released a new album on KiTalbum called Masquerade in the Underground. And she does everything. It's a multimedia experience, essentially. There's a companion stories. There's a companion novel that's being released chapter by chapter. There's videos that tie into the plot. Everything has been crafted to build this world of fairies and of mortals and the relationship between these two worlds. And before we get into all of this, I would love it if, for like the lay people who know fairies just as far as like Tinkerbell, if you could give a little bit more of a primer on fairies, on the Fae Queen, that sort of thing, that type of lore, so that our audience here can situate themselves as we start talking about all of these things.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. And I know that this album, because it is such a deep concept album with a lot of lore, it's a big ask, as far as asking people to, kind of, strap in for what the ride is. But as far as, Fae folklore and things like that and how it ties into the concept of this record, I think that on a high level, as far as pop culture is concerned, people that aren't lore nerds in the way that I am, they think about a fairy, and then, like you said, they might think about Tinkerbell, right? And as far as like actual folklore, based in Celtic mythology and things like that, it couldn't be kind of further away from that. So the Fae in Celtic mythology, as just like a quick crash course, were originally like demigods in Ireland and Scotland, and they lived, alongside human beings. And there's a whole situation where they got driven into the underground, and basically the humans took the upper world, and the Fae took the lower world. And and there are a lot more, kind of mercurial, scary even stories about the Fae, and a lot of superstition about the Fae and the way they interact with humans. And that sometimes they may lure or seduce a human into their world and keep them there in their court for however many hundreds of years, and time moves differently there. So if the person does happen to escape, they think they've been there for 5 minutes, and they might get out and they're like 100 years old. Like there's all these like interesting kind of like folklore ties that go in with the actual folklore of the Fae. And I was always just really into that as a kid. I loved those stories. I thought they were really cool. And I felt like, and where
were you experiencing those stories? Were you through books, through movies, through what?
All of the above. My favorite movie ever is Labyrinth, and with David Bowie, because as far as I'm concerned, it has it all. It's got David Bowie, it's got great music, it's got fantasy, amazing folklore. But that movie actually is pretty like accurate to what those stories were like. And
that's so interesting. I would have never thought that. But that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Jim Henson in the Creature Shop and everything, there's a lot of really like great entertainers involved that probably did their research.
Right. And they, the guy that they kind of had come in to do, and he's, I shouldn't say like that he just came in, he's been a huge part of the Jim Henson like experience forever. But the artist that designed, lots of the creatures and helped design Jareth, David Bowie's design, is a guy named Brian Froud, who is a renowned fairy artist and has so many books and all of these things. And he's incredibly knowledgeable on all of the real folklore of this stuff. So as a kid, I got super, super into Labyrinth, and I just loved everything about it. And I think that if there's probably anything that informed this the most, it's probably my love of Labyrinth. But then ended up getting into all kinds of things that are related. I loved Legend as a kid, the 80s movie Legend, with Tom Cruise and Tim Curry, and classic, all kinds of stories. My favorite book is a novel called Strange and Norrell, which is like deep Fae folklore. Dr. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell is the whole name of it. And so it's just all of that kind of stuff just has informed the kinds of nerdery that I am interested in, and the kinds of folklore that I'm interested in. And my last record was a very cathartic record, because I had overcome a long experience with breast cancer. And so that last record was very much focused on that journey, which was, again, cathartic, but also just heavy. And I wanted to do something
more personal and like terrestrial.
Yeah, exactly. And for this record, I was like, okay, so I have been living inside of a lot of, very heavy, big feelings for several years with this last album. And I wouldn't change it for the world. But for this new record, I wanted to do something completely based in fantasy, something that was just fun. And I felt like, even outside of my own experiences with cancer and the last record and the reasons that I made the last record, there's a lot of dark in the world at this point. And I felt like, maybe giving, an avenue of escapism to not only myself, but to my listeners might be like a welcome, just like a welcome moment of reprieve from reality, because reality is a lot right now. So that was the kind of mental journey that my brain took as far as getting to why I made Masquerade in the Underground.
And is there something about the theme of fairies and their interaction with humans and that dynamic that other than, let's just say, like nostalgia and like what you grew up on, is there something about that relationship that really draws you in, that made you want to center an album around it?
I think that again, there are just elements that are inherently authentic to things that I'm interested in, but there are also, as far as a creative, as far as a creative path to take and looking at, a concept overall and going, what are the branches on this tree and what can I do with them? I think that the idea of modernizing a Fae folklore story, which is essentially what this album does, lends itself to a lot of really cool creative opportunities. As far as, I'm a big imagery person. I am a visual artist. I love to draw. I have illustrated books. Like, this is something that that's a whole other side of the artistry that I really love to engage with. And as far as world building, like, what a beautiful world. What a beautiful opportunity as far as world building. And also, I think that it's one of those things too that you can kind of put your own twist on, as far as, I wanted to create what in my mind, a female version of Jareth might look like, right? Like, sort of a Fae rock star, but like we have these archetypes of like these male kind of like swaggy, Fae kind of, or elven, dudes, but I hadn't really seen much. I hadn't really seen much in the way of like a female in that role. Right. And I thought from a creative standpoint, that'd be cool. Like, you have Jareth, you have Thranduil from The Hobbit, Lee Pace with his long blonde hair and he's on his throne with like one leg up and like, you know what I mean? Like, we have a lot of this male archetype of that energy. And I was like, I want to see a girl in that role. And I think from a creative standpoint, I think from a creative standpoint, it would be very cool. And also, to see somebody that a character that is mercurial and isn't necessarily all good or all bad. I don't know. I just like the idea of sort of like a dangerous female thing. I like. And
it's just so idea. I would imagine it's so fun and satisfying to like add to the compendium of lore that like you're literally participating in the tradition that was started in, the like these in ancient Ireland and Scotland and Northern Europe and all these places. You're continuing it for the modern world. You're literally putting art out into the world and creating stories and sharing stories that are impacting people that build on this tradition. And I think it's cool. And I'd imagine it probably feels cool too.
Oh, what a lovely thing to say. I hadn't even really like considered that, as far as, I've had a lot of consideration of how I can kind of put my own, spin on this with, while being as accurate and respectful to, the pillars of it as possible. But it's actually really, that's actually just a really lovely thing to think. Like, I hadn't considered that I'm actually, contributing to that.
You're contributing to it. You're a storyteller of our time. No different than these people were storytellers at any other point in time in the building of this tradition.
Well, thank you.
So I'm wondering if I should have you just so we're able to ground this for people who haven't listened to the album yet. give just a quick overview of what the concept is of the album? I mean, we were sort of dancing around it, talking about the Fae and talking about the lore that informs it, but specifically like plot wise and the characters and everything. What's going on with this album?
Okay. All right. Perfect. So this album is sort of it's sort of a two-part project. There is the album that is music, and then there is the novel that is the deep dive, right? So the concept overall for this album and for this book is there is a Fae queen, and her name is Brenna, and she has a complicated, centuries-long relationship that involves reincarnation with a human man named Andrew. And the thing that I felt like was sort of spooky and cool about this record was I wanted to create this human fairy kind of love story that had this sort of gothic dark overtone. And then as I started to do research, I found, and I literally still get goosebumps thinking about it. I had come up with this entire idea in my mind, and then I ended up finding way after the fact, like I think most of the album, if not all of the actual music for this, had been recorded, and I hadn't dived into the book idea yet. So I had this concept of like, I knew who the Fairy Queen was. I knew she was in love with this human man, and that their relationship was complicated, and that she was basically trying to get him to come stay with her forever in the underground. But she loved him enough that she wanted him to make these choices on his own, right? So the album was sort of this like siren song of their relationship, of like all the reasons that he should come be there. And then, if he pushes back, like the Depeche Mode song is like, fine, I've got all the time in the world, you think you're going to get away from me kind of a thing. So that was the album side of it. And we got done with the music of it, or we were very close to being done with the music of it. And I was researching for the book and kind of trying to, flesh out historical stuff so that I could be as accurate as possible, and ended up finding a story that's an actual real story that is remarkably similar to the concept that I had completely birthed by myself. And so when I found this story, I was like, whoa. And I went down the rabbit hole on this legend, this historical couple, essentially.
Yeah.
And I decided that it would be really, really cool to take the book in a, almost a historical fiction direction, where, if you decide that you want to Google the name Andrew Mann, you will find his name in the Scottish witch trials for having a relationship with the Queen of the Fairies for 30 years. Wow. Right? So,
and you had come up with that name before?
No. The name I had never named. I had never named the guy.
idea is similar. Yeah.
So I had never named the dude. I'd never given him a name, and I decided that I was going to give him a name for the book when I got to that point. And the other thing, specifically for the album as well, like I had this whole story in my head, but it was important to me as far as the album was concerned, was that when you listen to it as the listener, it feels like you are stepping into the role of the object of her affection or the object of her obsession, right? So the opening track of that album is speaking.
She's your lens. She's your lens for the album.
She's your lens, and she's your lens, and she's speaking to you, but you are her Andrew in that moment, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's from her perspective, but she's like at you.
It's like at you. Exactly.
Yeah.
So even though I had this entire framework in my mind of her and this guy, I wanted the listener to be able to like basically, superimpose themselves into that role of the Fairy Queen is now focused on you. Like she wants you. So this entire album is now, your interactive relationship, like you're sucked into this story, right? But for the book, I wanted the book to be more of a journal experience. And so anyway, so when I really decided, I had all the tenets of the books. Like I knew this story. I literally had just not given this guy a name yet. Like I had a few different ideas, and his middle name that was one of my original names actually ends up in the book. But when I was doing my research and found that story that was so remarkably just similar. It's literally just like a folk tale, and it's in the Scottish witch trials. This guy was actually executed, which is terrible. But this guy allegedly in Scotland accused of witchcraft for being a healer, and had basically it came out during his trial that he had a 30-year-long relationship with the Queen of the Fae, and he gave all sorts of wild details about that relationship and who she was, and everyone in that particular area of Scotland knew, was incredibly familiar with who she was and the stories about her and all of that stuff. And I was like,
and he admitted this stuff in the trial.
He admitted this stuff. Like he fully admitted this stuff. I'm sure under duress, I'm sure under torture and all sorts of horrible stuff. But I thought that the framework of this actual piece of history was similar enough that I was like, that's his name. Like I'm going to allow this to be a piece of historical fiction. And this guy is now Andrew Mann, and he's a reincarnated version of this person. And the relationship continues in 2023, which is where that book starts. So that's the idea. And I know it's a lot, but some of my favorite albums ever growing up were concept albums, and had, deep concepts and stories and things like that. And I thought, as long as the music is great, you don't necessarily have to participate in the story if that's not your thing. But if it is your thing, then you get everything. Like you get an entire world building experience. So that's really been the goal, is to have something that's accessible for everyone, and to have great music that, I love and that I'm proud of, that anybody can kind of like, that's something for everyone, sort of a record where there's all different kinds of music on it. And then also have this, whole other layer of world building that if you want to participate with it, you want to engage with it, there's, a lot more you can. Well,
it's the hallmark of good fantasy too, these layers of depth. Like I could see people writing like fan fiction based off of this,
I would love that. I would love that. You feel like you really made it,
Yeah. You have like a Reddit that has different fan fiction on it from people writing.
Totally.
So you have these. So the album centers around, all right, the Fae Queen. She's trying to like ensnare Andrew, and then the book has from Andrew's perspective as he's going through all of this.
Yes.
Do you, as you're writing both parts and seeing both sides, do you find that you are seeing some of yourself in both of them? Do you see some of yourself more in one than the other? Are you channeling certain aspects of yourself? That's a lot of questions, but sort of in the same vein.
I totally understand. And this is actually a conversation my friends and I have had, because my little sister and my best friends, they're all reading these chapters as I post them on Patreon. And, the people that really know me well are able to, read these things and go, you are in all of these characters. Like Andrew just said something that is very much you, or Brenna did something that is very much you. But I don't feel like there's any one character in the story that is like an avatar for me.
Right.
But I definitely do feel like I'm in everybody. And if I were close enough to any of the characters, I would probably be closest to Andrew, because I feel like he's just the most human. Like, he makes mistakes and all this stuff. Like Brenna is on another level. So, she's fun to dress up as.
He doesn't have the same agenda that she does.
Yeah. And I mean, she actually does ultimately have a good heart, but coming from the world that she comes from, she is not human. So
yeah. Going back really quickly to the talking about the fans of this and how fans are interacting with this on different levels. You are very connected and very active with your fans on Patreon. And have, do you feel like in those interactions with those fans, because it seems like you're having them probably fairly frequently, have you learned anything about the album that you're like, oh yeah, or about yourself, or like, is there anything being sort of reflected back at you that's enriching your experience of this album and this creative work?
I mean, I don't know if I've necessarily learned if I don't know if I've necessarily learned anything about myself, but I have watched something really, really cool happen as far as, you know, how do I say this? Like this, because this was a big ask, you know, because this is such a convoluted, as far as, you know, there's lots of moving parts to this idea. And I was nervous as far as, you know, whether or not people were going to get it. So I was trying to make it kind of this multi-tier experience where you can kind of engage at any level you want. You can go deep if you want to, and you don't have to go deep if you don't. But some of the people who have really, really, really gone deep with this, you know, are people that I wouldn't necessarily have expected to. Like, you know, I've got in your brain, you think of a story like this, at least I do. And you think of, you know, sort of, you know, girls engaging with,
there's like a stereotype of the fan. Yeah.
Right. Like people like me, you know what I mean? And there have been so many beautiful messages and, you know, just comments and really sincere engagement from people of all walks of life. And I mean, you know, like grown ass men that are just like, why am I so engaged with what's happening with these people? Yeah, right. And that really has made me, that's tickled me. Like that means a lot to me. It means a lot to me, you know, not only that they're super into it and that, you know, there isn't some kind of target audience that I'm being surprised, but also that, that not only that, you know, somebody that I wouldn't necessarily have expected to like, engage with it in the first place, but they really are into it. Right. So that's been really cool.
Yeah. Not just like, oh, interesting, this type of person bought it, but like, oh, wow, the people that are most obsessed with this don't necessarily like fit a stereotype.
Right. Exactly. Like the demo for this has turned out to be, you know, a beautiful surprise. Like there really is no demo. It's kind of
what a cool thing.
People from all walks of life. So it's been great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shifting gears a little bit to just talk about like the music aspect of this in general. Well, first of all, what got you, what was your, I don't think we talked about this last time, but I remember being like, oh, I should ask that. What was your avenue into making music in the first place? Were you a kid who made music? Were you a kid who aspired to make music? How did you get into this?
Yeah. So I have been, my mom says that I've been exactly the same person since I was born. I've had exactly the same interests since I was like cognizant. So I have been singing and engaging with music since I was old enough to remember. And anybody that would allow me to sing for them or to, you know, to mess around with instruments or whatever, that was something that I was deeply interested in as a little child. And I think I credit, and it just stayed. Like the things that I still do today, as far as creative endeavors, are things that I was doing as a very little kid. I loved to draw. I've always loved to draw. I've always loved to sing. I love music of all types. I am, you know, super interested in acting and theater and just anything that's, you know, a world building creative thing and how I can, you know, the different ways that I can engage with it. But music and visual art have always been my two big ones ever since I was a little kid. So that was the entry, was just being a little tiny kid with probably, you know, two older, you know, siblings that were listening to really cool music. You know,
what kind of stuff were they listening to?
Some of the stuff that's on this record. So, you know, some of my earliest memories are my older sister, Nikki, loved Echo and the Bunnymen and Depeche Mode. And, right. And those became, you know, when I was a little kid, I got into that. And it's funny. I did an interview a few years back, with a newspaper, and the guy was talking to me about, the reporter was talking to me about this same subject. And I said that I was like, oh, you know, I think some of my earlier memories were listening to the stuff that my older brother and sister were listening to, like Echo and Depeche Mode and stuff like that. Yeah. And he was like, so you were like a 5 or 6 year old, like listening to Depeche Mode or Echo and the Bunnymen? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, that feels young. And I was like, I don't know. That's what was happening. Cause that's
it, like knowing your whole deal now, it makes complete sense.
knowing who I turned into. But I mean, it's like when you're the little sibling, because this was like before my little sister was born. You know, you look up to your older brothers and sisters, and you know, you're looking at what they're doing and going, oh, you know, what do they think is cool and stuff like that. And they were both really into music, and so that was something. And my mom was actually really, both my parents really loved music, but my mom specifically was really into music as well, and she had very cool tastes. Like, you know, I was born in the 80s, and my mom was a big Fleetwood Mac fan. She loved my mom just has cool tastes. So I was surrounded by a lot of good musical tastes.
Did you ever have, like, when you were a teenager or beyond it, did you ever like have an era where you became like into a scene in a deeper way, like a scene kid, basically? Like, did you go through like an emo phase, or did you go through like a punk phase, or like anything like that?
I think I've been kind of, I don't know. I never went into, like, my little sister was more in the emo kind of world.
Sure. Did she have
she
this?
did. She had the swoop. Yeah, she did.
Of course.
She did. Yes. But yeah, that was kind of more her deal. I feel like I really found my avenue was probably when I was in like 6th grade. I got ridiculously into the bands that I feel like would really, really, really shape me. Like, my favorite bands are the Smashing Pumpkins, the Cranberries, Garbage, like the 90s kind of alt scene, Nine Inch Nails, you know, Tool, all of those kind of bands at that time were really, really important to the kind of music that I ended up wanting to make. And so if anything, there was a scene, I guess, that I was, you know, kind of in, and at least, you know, I don't even know if I was
like
in
90s
it.
alt.
I wanted to be in it. I wanted to be in it.
That was the space that you were.
Yeah, I was little. I was kind of too little to really be in it. I was in, you know, 6th grade, or, you know, I think I got my first Cranberry CD in 5th grade. So, and I think my first Garbage album was in 5th grade as well. But yeah, like I remember the Smashing Pumpkins at the time. I think this was like, I was in like 7th or 8th grade. And at the time we lived in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I remember the Smashing Pumpkins did a free show, and I can't remember where they did it, but it was at a record store or something. And I was too young to go by myself. Like, no one could go with me or something. And I was like 12 or 13, like 7th grade, I think. And I was just like, no, like, why do I always have to be so into everything that like is way older kids are into?
They, I mean, Billy Corgan, there's a guy who does a lot of the same type of thing that you're doing, right? Where it's not just making an album, it's like building a world around the album and a narrative and like companion.
Yes.
I maybe I'm remembering incorrectly, but I feel like there were albums where there were like companion art pieces and like stories and things like that.
Absolutely. So my favorite, like if I had to, you know, desert island and could only take one album with me for the rest of my life, it would probably be Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness by Smashing Pumpkins, because it's just a perfect album in my opinion. Plus you get like, that's kind of a cheat, you know, it's kind of a life hack, because it's basically you're taking 2 albums with you. But but yeah, that was an album with a lot of, you know, deep lore and an overarching concept of, you know, of the cycle of a day, and, you know, as a metaphor for life and things like that. So he definitely is part of the reason why I am the way I am. that's
and being into that era of alt 90s rock. What a like cool full circle moment that the producer on this album is also worked with the Cranberries, right?
Yeah, Dan Broadbeck. There's a very cool backstory there. Dan and I have been working together since 2007. In 2004, I was introduced to Dolores O'Riordan, and the lead singer of the Cranberries, and she and I hit it off and became friendly, and kind of one thing led to another. And in 2007, she ended up over at my better half's house before she performed. She had a solo record coming out called "Are You Listening?" And she and her
husband, must have been so fucking surreal, by the way. Like being a fan of them when you're a kid, and now she's like at your house. I'm not gonna lie. There were moments where I was just like, "What is happening?" But yeah, she was over at the house, and this is like I'll try to shorten this story, but it is a great story. So
I was working on demos that for what was supposed to become my first album, and I'd been working with a producer at the time who ended up having to leave for several months to go work on a film, and at that time, the film was Sweeney Todd in London. It was the Tim Burton Sweeney Todd, right?
Yeah.
And the kind of the idea, the original timeline of him being gone was going to be about 3 months. And that film ended up taking a lot longer to make. And long story short, he was gone for I feel like it was 8 or 9 months. And Dolores had come to LA to perform on Jay Leno to promote her new solo album. And we lived right there. We lived in Studio City at the time. So she and her husband came over to the house to hang out. And then we were all going to go to the Tonight Show together to watch her perform. Yeah. And she wanted to hear some of whatever my new stuff was that I was working on. And I'd been sending her demos for I don't know how long. I have no concept of time, but I'd been sending her demos for a while. And she was like, I'd love to hear some of your new stuff. And I said, I don't have any new stuff right now because the movie is still going and nobody's back yet and all that stuff. And she was like, well, let me put you with my producer, Dan. I think you'd get along really well, kind of thing. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, well, I was like, that
great
would be
accent, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. I spent a lot of time with her, when I was younger. And so anyway, so she literally marched me right downstairs, right then. She was like, I really think that, you and Dan would get along well and that it would be a great opportunity for you to just keep working and just keep writing. And walked outside and asked her husband to get Dan on the phone right then. And her husband did. And long story short, Dan and I ended up getting together and writing, and it was an immediate fit. It worked out so well. And we have continued to work for, God, what is it now? 18 years since 2007. Yeah. So in 2027, it'll be 20 years. So it's been a very,
whoa, talk
very
about
long
no
time.
concept of time. I'm like, you just blew my mind there. I'm like, wait, that was 20.
Right.
Oh
right. I know. In my brain, the 90s are always 10 years ago. So I have to actively
the 90s feel like the previous thing that happened. And then, and then there's just now, but then I think about, I'll look at videos from 2004. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that kind of looks like the 90s. I don't think we realized that we were still pretty close.
Yeah, I know. Totally. I have the same experience. I have to legitimately math in my brain and be like, oh God. And the worst too.
Don't even do it. Just don't do it. Don't think about it.
Let's just not do it. The worst is when a band you love, like the Pumpkins or whatever, are going out on tour and they're like the 30th anniversary of Melancholy. Right. I'm like, no, what? That's so weird.
When I was in high school, I got really into the Strokes, and they released or there was some article on Stereo Gum or something recently that talked about it, the 25th anniversary of the Strokes' first album or something. I'm like, what?
What's happening?
25th? There's people working at law firms that weren't even born when this album came out.
Oh my God. There was I don't know. I'll try to not derail us, but it's just so funny. There was some TikTok or reel or something I saw recently where somebody got ID'd at a bar or a club or something. And they handed the bartender or the bouncer or whatever their ID, and the guy just handed he just didn't even look at it. He handed it right back to him. And she was like, you didn't even look at my birthday. And he goes, I saw the 19. I saw the 19.
Oh.
I saw that you were born in the 1900s.
Oh, geez. Yeah. the last century.
I know you're over 21 because anybody that I have to worry about was born after the 1900s. They have a 2 at the beginning of their birthday.
Yeah. 2004 is 21 now?
Yeah.
Never mind. Don't think about it.
We're not doing this. Run away!
Back really to this to the Kit album aspect of this.
Yeah.
So you've released this as a Kit album.
Yeah.
Where we have we have 2 unboxings of this that we've posted, and I'll link that in the description here so that you can see those again. That sort of gives viewers an idea of what a Kit album is. But for short, is a physical format that you can play digitally, clicking it to your phone. What drew you to releasing this album as a Kit album?
Being the kind of person that I am, that is, somebody that does place a lot of value on imagery and on, the visual side of things. Obviously the music is incredibly important. It's the most important, but I feel like there is this whole other aspect to, the album experience that has been lost on some level. And, when I was a kid, I loved to go buy, whatever album it was that I was really excited about. I loved to buy it. I loved to look through the liner notes. I love to look at all of the artwork and the lyrics and think about, what the artist must have been thinking when they decided to make these creative choices and all that stuff. And I just felt like that was something that had been lost on some level. And I collect vinyl. I love vinyl, but I also feel like vinyl is something that is, not accessible as far as, you're not going to be bringing your vinyl collection with you,
sure.
In the car or to the gym or whatever. So I was really just excited when I saw that, that the Kit album was something that existed, because I was like, this is a perfect marriage between that thing that I love, that tactile experience, that, being able to sit down with an album and actually look at the packaging for it and look at the artwork, look at the lyrics, all that stuff. And being able to have a digital experience with it as well, that is in your phone, just like everything else in your life is, that you can bring with you, anywhere. And I just felt like it was such a smart idea. I couldn't believe actually that nobody had kind of thought about doing this already, because it was the kind of the missing link in my brain as far as formats. Like, we have these songs on our phone, but we have nothing. We don't have the collector's aspect of things anymore. Yeah. And that's what this is. So I think I thought it was just like, that was a no brainer for me. I was like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. This is the hybrid we need.
You are exactly who we're hoping to reach. So we're so happy that you found KiTbetter and put this like incredible, multifaceted work of art out with us.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so lightning round.
Okay.
One of them is kind of related to what we were just talking about a moment ago. Where did you buy music as a kid? Where did you go? Where was your store?
The Warehouse in Sam Goody.
Yeah. For me, it was Warehouse and Borders books. I remember loving Borders because you could like preview. You had the headphones and you could preview the albums.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real novelty.
True.
What has been, let's say, your go-to album this past week? Like, what do you keep going back to? What's in your rotation?
I really like the new Youngblood, but I have been in we talked about this last time. I have been in a Hyde era for like a good minute. Like this new album, my favorite artist right now is a Japanese artist, rock artist named Hyde, and his new album Hyde Inside is my favorite record of 2025, and I listen to it all the time. I love it.
And you covered Hyde on this album, right?
I did actually. I didn't cover anything from the new record, but I covered music from his last record. So
yeah. Now, I know I asked you this last time in part of the lightning round, but people need to hear it. You're Fae Queen. You're hosting a Masquerade. Who do you invite? They can be alive or dead.
Number
Bowie. One guest.
David Bowie.
Duh.
I forgot you even asked me that. Like the answer would never have changed.
No, that's what I figured. The confidence with which you answered it last time, I imagined that I could ask you that like 50 years from now and it would be the same.
It would be the same. It would be the same answer. He's pretty much my answer for everything. So
yeah. And then finally, what is a fantasy novel or series that you feel like people don't necessarily, not as many people necessarily know about, but you would encourage people read and get into?
Oh, okay. I brought it up earlier, and I think I told you about it on the last when we talked about this last time. But it's super worth evangelizing in my opinion. It is both a novel and a series, and it is called Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. And in my opinion, it is one of the best pieces of fantasy fiction that has happened in the last 20 years. It is gorgeous. The show is I think it originally aired on the BBC, but it's available to watch on Amazon Prime right at this point, I think.
Cool.
I own it on Blu-ray, so I don't because I want the prettiest version of it. But it is absolutely gorgeous, and it is absolutely relevant to our discussion today. It is based in Faelor, but it is also incredibly historically accurate, and it is a beautiful piece of historical fiction. It takes place during the Napoleonic Wars, but there is this entire the magical side of this story, which is the point of this story, is beautifully executed, and the novel itself is absolutely gorgeous as well. So the show or the novel, you can't go wrong. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
There it is.
There it is.
That's the end of my list.
There you go.
But I feel like I should ask you, is there any, obviously we're plugging this album, right? Which is available on your site. Do you have it available on your site? At least it's available on KiTbetter.com. How can they get it from you? Yeah,
I do. If you come to my neck of the woods and you go to store.ravenquinn.com, I have 2 different versions of the album available. I have a limited edition signed and personalized version. So if you buy that, when you go to checkout, there'll be a little notes field on the checkout, and you can just tell me your name or who you'd like the album signed to, and I will sign it and I will make it out to whoever you ask me to make it out to in the notes section of that. Yeah. And then you can also buy just the standard regular unsigned copy from my store as well. And that actually just clicks through to KiTbetter. So
sure.
So you'll be buying it directly from KiTbetter, but you can buy it through my store via KiTbetter.
Get that signed copy, everybody. I mean, come on. First of all, Raven makes more money off of that. Second of all, you get a signed copy.
It's real. I mean, Derek's a real one for telling you that. It's very true. And those I still have some left of those. So get one for Christmas, guys.
Yeah, it's a great gift. What else? Anything else that you're working on, or that you're promoting, or that any shows coming up, anything like that?
Right now, we're just in album land as far as every month we have a new song coming out. The next single comes out tomorrow, which is Underground. And I don't know when people will see this, but at this point, tomorrow is October 23rd. So Underground will hit all of the digital platforms on October 23rd, and then our next music video comes out on. The next single comes out on November 14th, and that's for Final Piece. And I can't remember exactly which day the video comes out, sometime within that week span. The video may come out on November 14th as well. I can't remember, but we are working on a video release for mid-November as well. Yeah. So definitely keep an eye on my social media. I'll be jumping into the promotion for next month's track.
Yeah.
Kind of when we get through the promo for Underground, which I'm really excited about on that song, because it is one of definitely the heaviest tracks on the record, and I love all kinds of music, and I very specifically put a good kind of mix of ethereal ballads to very heavy songs, but I am sort of a metalhead in my soul, so sure. I'm specifically excited about the song release for tomorrow, because it's a beast.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
What are you going to be for Halloween?
It's always a surprise on my social media.
I don't want. Let's not spoil it then. Let's not spoil it.
I'll tell you
because this might come out before then. Yeah.
Okay. I'll tell you when we hang up.
All right. I'm gonna sign off then, because I want to find out. Everyone out there in listener land, thank you for listening. Thank you, Raven, for being a part of this and being so kind as to do this again for us.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Masquerade in the Underground. Get it. Get it. Get it. Get it. Get it. Goodbye.